Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We've watched the dragon's wings of CAT fly over the jungles of Laos, but by the late 1960s, the agency became convinced that the real battlefield wasn't in the Mekong Delta, it was in the dormitories of Harvard and the plazas of Berkeley. President Lyndon Johnson was haunted by a single question: were the anti-war protests being funded by Moscow? The agency was strictly prohibited by its 1947 charter from domestic spies. But the pressure from the White House was immense. To bridge that gap, they created a program so secret even most of the agency didn't know it existed. This was Operation MHCHAOS. When the agency looks at the youth of its own country and sees the enemy, the line between national security and state tyranny vanishes. Operation MHCHAOS was established in 1967 by CIA Director Richard Helms and run by the Special Operations Group under Richard Ober. A quote from the 1975 Rockefeller Commission report: the agency's Special Operations Group collected information on 300,000 individuals and organizations and maintained separate files on approximately 7,200 American citizens. End quote. The agency utilized a cutting-edge computer system in 1969 called Hydra to cross-reference student leaders with known foreign intelligence assets. Undercover agents, known as Beagles, were recruited from the student body at universities like Yale and Stanford to infiltrate student unions and radical groups like the Weather Underground. A quote from former CIA Director William Colby: the program was born out of a perceived necessity to determine if there was a foreign mastermind behind the domestic unrest. We found none, but the machine kept running. End quote. The declassified archives reveal that the agency maintained a Langley safe house where student informants were debriefed and coached on how to provoke radical leaders into making incriminating statements. Operation MHCHAOS worked in tandem with the FBI program COINTELPRO, sharing files on civil rights leaders like Stokely and Carmichael. Technological breakthroughs included the acoustic keychain, a miniature recording device hidden in common student items that could transmit audio to a van parked outside the student union. A quote from a declassified 1968 internal memo: our presence on campus must remain invisible. If a student is suspected of being an agency asset, the blowback on the university's relationship with the government would be catastrophic. End quote. The declassified files document Project 2, a sub-operation where agency officers posed as radical journalists to gain entry into private meetings of the Black Panther Party. The agency developed a social network analysis technique, manually mapping out who was sharing apartments or attending the same underground meetings to identify the true influencers. The declassified logs show that MHCHAOS tracked the travel of American students to international youth festivals in Prague and Havana, fearing they were being recruited by the KGB. Informants were trained in technical surreptitious entry to break into student organization offices and photograph membership lists using miniature Minox cameras. The declassified records confirm that the agency utilized the Office of Medical Services to create psychological profiles of student activists to find emotional vulnerabilities. A quote from a 1972 security audit: the Hydra system is now capable of identifying a domestic agitator within seconds of their name appearing in a foreign intercept. End quote. MHCHAOS was so secretive that even the agency's own Office of General Counsel was kept in the dark about the domestic nature of the surveillance for several years. The declassified release documents Operation Squirrel, where agents intercepted university mail to track the flow of underground newspapers and radical manifestos. Agency linguists were used to decode the slang and jargon of the 1960s counterculture to better train middle-aged agents on how to blend in during protest rallies. The declassified archives reveal that the agency spent millions on microfilm preservation of student leaflets, creating a massive digital library of dissent in a bunker in Virginia. The program was officially shut down in 1974 after the New York Times exposed the domestic spying. But the declassified files suggest the Hydra data was never truly deleted, only moved to a deep storage server. The operation successfully infiltrated over 40 radical groups, often placing multiple informants in the same room who unknowingly spied on each other while reporting back to different handlers. The declassified logs show that the agency monitored the phone calls and international telegrams of Jane Fonda and other celebrities suspected of anti-American activities. The agency developed invisible ink markers that student informants could use to mark the backs of jackets at rallies, making targets visible only under agency UV spotlights. The declassified release highlights the use of acoustic ranging to triangulate the exact locations of illegal pirate radio stations broadcasting from university dorms. One of the most successful beagles was an agency asset who spent 3 years as a treasurer for a radical group, funneling every financial record directly to the Hydra database. The declassified archives indicate that MHCHAOS monitored the bank accounts of thousands of students, looking for unexplained deposits that might signal foreign funding. A quote from a 1970 CIA director's briefing: "The line between foreign intelligence and domestic dissent is no longer a line. It is a gray zone where the agency must operate with absolute discretion." End quote. The agency utilized scent tracking technology using trained dogs to identify which activists had handled specific radical flyers distributed at anti-war rallies. By 1973, MHCHAOS had generated over 1 million pages of documentation, much of which was shredded just days before the Church Committee investigators arrived. But while the Rockefeller Commission told us a lot, the declassified release proves they didn't tell us everything. The chapter titled "Terminal Influence" is a wall of black ink. Get ready for the theory of the puppet protest. Speculation suggests MHCHAOS didn't just watch the movement, it directed it. The theory is that the redacted instigator payments were used to hire provocateurs who would purposely turn peaceful protest into violent riots. Why? To scare the silent majority of Americans and destroy the public's sympathy for the anti-war cause. The black ink hides the riot schedules. What if the leaders were made? A dark rumor suggests the agency utilized LSD and other hallucinogens as part of a subliminal conditioning program on college campuses. The theory suggests the redactions hide the dorm room experiment logs where students were dosed without their knowledge to see if they could be programmed to become radical Manchurian candidates for the agency to control. Did they replace the professors? Some believe the redactions hide Project Tenure, where the agency removed radical professors and replaced them with agents who looked the part, and the black bars hide their course curriculum for brainwashing. A wild whisper claims the redactions prove the agency used silent sound technology in university library events to induce depression in activists, with the black ink masking the frequency impact charts. Are the essays watching you? Gossip suggests the redacted pages detail Operation Blueprint, where student papers were scanned for thought patterns that indicated a future rebel, and the black ink hides the pre-crime algorithm data. The kindergarten KGB theory posits that the redactions hide a plan to begin monitoring children as early as age 5 for signs of anti-government sentiment, with the black bars masking the preschool surveillance logs. Was the graduation water spiked? Some believe the redactions describe Operation Commencement, where memory-erasing gas was released at graduation ceremonies to make students forget what they learned in radical classes, and the black ink covers the amnesia dosage tables. The Langley line theory claims the redactions prove every payphone on the Harvard campus was a direct line to the Langley safe house, and the black bars hide the eavesdropping transcripts. Is the textbook a bug? Gossip suggests the redactions hide Project Paperback, where microphones were woven into the binding of popular radical books, and the black ink mask the reading room audio. Some whisper that the redactions hide the fact that the agency actually won the cultural war by creating the modern celebrity influencer to distract the youth, and the black ink is the only thing preventing a total rejection of pop culture. There is a chilling theory that the blacked out files on Project Echo detail how the agency used the Hydra computer to simulate the effects of a national student uprising, and the redactions hide the fact that they purposely let the 1970 strikes happen to test their containment algorithms. Rumors in the internet suggest the social network analysis was actually a test for neural mapping systems that could predict a person's future politics based on who they ate lunch with, and the black bars are hiding the political destiny scores. The clone campus theory suggests the agency built a full-scale replica of the Berkeley campus in the desert to train agents on how to infiltrate buildings, and the redactions hide the mock riot casualty reports. Did they use mechanical birds? Gossip suggests the redactions hide early biomimetic drones, pigeons and squirrels equipped with cameras that monitored student plazas, and the black ink mask the avian surveillance logs. Lastly, the ghost student rumor claims the redactions prove hundreds of graduates from the 1960s never actually existed. They were deep cover artificial identities created by the agency to populate radical groups, and the black ink hides their deletion protocols. Was Operation MHCHAOS a success? Tactically, it was a failure. Despite 7 years of spying, the agency concluded that there was no significant foreign control of the anti-war movement. They found a few isolated contacts, but no communist mastermind. Strategically, it was a disaster. The discovery of the program led to the Church Committee hearings, which stripped the agency of much of its power and oversight freedom for decades. They lost the trust of the American public to find a threat that didn't exist. Technologically and operationally, MHCHAOS forced the agency to invent the tools of modern domestic surveillance. For instance, automated data mining. The Hydra computer system was the great-grandfather of modern predictive policing. Undercover campus logistics, developing the student persona training that is still used for deep cover domestic assets. Interagency data sharing, the first real fusion center between the CIA and the FBI. Mass surveillance indexing, learning how to manage and search hundreds of thousands of files on non-combatants. Operation MHCHAOS serves as a warning of what happens when the shadow world forgets where the border begins. As the declassified files reveal, the student spy wasn't just a mission. It was a mirror reflecting the agency's own paranoia back at itself. Thanks for listening. Join us next time as we examine Project HT Lingual. The agency wanted to read every letter that crossed the border. We'll uncover the mail intercept program. We'll look at the steam rooms, the envelope surgeons, and the 20-year operation that opened millions of private letters in the name of security. Join us next time for the paper trap. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.